Stories stir the soul.
Stories reveal.
And stories heal.
In this podcast, we will give you an inside look at someone who's had a life-changing breakthrough.
Real people, real stories with real breakthroughs. As a health and wellness expert and coach, and Todd as a men's mentor,
we've seen firsthand what God can do when it comes to a breakthrough. So lean in, listen well. This could be your biggest breakthrough.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Your Biggest Breakthrough. I'm your host, Wendy Pett.
I'm Todd Ismer. Boy, you sort of sound like a radio announcer when you did that.
Oh, do I?
I think that's because we have actually a radio announcer type person who's our guest today.
I think you're right.
You know,
yes.
we've actually had several guests on the show that have dealt with loss, generally losing a loved one, and they talked about their pain of that loss and then what led to their biggest breakthrough.
Yeah, that's true. We have had quite a few guests that have come through the podcast with painful stories of loss, but I'm always just so amazed at how God shows up in the midst of their pain. It's just so encouraging all the time.
Yeah, I'm thinking about episode 16, and you wrote that down because I would never remember that by heart. But that was with Angela Alexander, and wow, she showed this like miraculous perspective after the loss of her children.
Oh,
and then one of my favorites too was our friend Clayton in episode 44. He shares about his mom's battle with cancer and how he walked through that whole process with her.
Yeah, those were all just really great shows. But I mean, we've even shared about grieving over our sweet pup Cody, and it was tough. But every one of these episodes of grief and pain has really offered breakthroughs and hope.
Well, on today's show, we have a dear friend of ours.
Yes,
excited
we do.
that she's going to join us today. And she's also experienced a loss in her life. But here's what's interesting. With that loss, she's really allowed God to open up the door in a very creative way to offer help and healing to others. And we're excited to hear more about that.
Yes. Pam Lundell is a 30-plus Twin Cities radio veteran. So we got to put on our radio voice. After the sudden death of her husband, John, after a battle with addiction in 2005, Pam was led to 98.5 KTIS, where she also came alongside New Widows with the nonprofit Widow Mite. Pam is also an in-demand voiceover talent. And after getting remarried in 2014 to Tim, otherwise known as Sparky, she lives in Minnetonka and enjoys what she calls her big fat blended family with 4 adult bonus kids and 3 grandchildren, plus a cute little Westie named Lily and a newly rescued Pomeranian, Miss Kitty. Pam was just inducted into the 2021 Minnesota Broadcasting Hall of Fame, and is spearheading a podcast for widows called A Widow's Heart, and is launching in 2022. And I'm just going to throw this in there. She's obsessed with flamingos. Welcome to the show.
Flamingos?
Oh, yes, she is. She's known as Pamingo.
Yes. I'm trying to trademark Pamingo. Yes.
Pamingo. Welcome to the show, Pam.
Oh, thank you both. This is such an awesome opportunity. I love both of your podcasts, and I'm just honored to be a part of this one.
Well, and hey, congrats again
Yes.
on that Hall of Fame. I just think that's so
Much
cool
deserved.
and so deserved.
Isn't that crazy?
It is kind of crazy. And especially when, we hear a little bit about your radio story and how it all ties in with the loss of your first husband, John. And so I don't want to give anything away here.
No, but before we even tap into how you started in broadcasting and all of that, we really like to hear from our guests and our friends that are guests about their faith breakthrough, their faith walk. Let's start there first.
Yeah, take us back to the beginning of where that started and how you got acquainted with God.
It's all kind of intertwined with that whole story of John, really is where it comes to a fruition. But I was born and raised right here in Minnesota, and my whole family, they went all over the United States, and I just stayed here and I attended the University of Minnesota. But my parents, we were Missouri Synod Lutheran, and I went to church every Sunday. When I went into high school, my sister and I would go in and grab a program and then go to Perkins for breakfast and then tell my dad we went to church. Did I just confess to that?
Yes,
I think
you
what
did.
you did is
You gave people ideas.
I hope there are no young people listening. Don't do that.
But yes, my parents did what they were supposed to do. They brought us up in the Word, and I love them both for that. And I still learn from them as role models every day. I got into my 20s after attending the University of Minnesota and was not very well behaved. And
what does that mean exactly?
We're just going to leave it at that.
Okay.
That's why I love you, Pam.
Yeah, but always in my heart and in my soul, more than my heart, I kept hearing this, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. Come back, come back. And I did. In my mid-20s, I found a church with some friends and started attending. And it was just like I was back home again. Really good. And I accepted Jesus as my Savior at a Billy Graham big thing at the state fairgrounds when I was in the youth group. Wow. I have to go back to that, So even though how I behaved, I knew Jesus loved me and I was going to heaven, but I wasn't behaving exactly the way I was supposed to be. But then, in my mid-20s and as my broadcasting career grew, I just really became to know and to love Jesus.
I love the fact that I love the fact that you were hearing within your inner being, you were hearing God calling you back, inviting you to come back. Yeah. And that's so precious. Wow.
Yeah. It was true. And I knew that, like I said, in my soul, and prodigal daughter, just come on back. And then I married John, and he had 2 children from a previous marriage. So that was the beginning of the big fat blended family. And then, John, and I know that we've talked about this before, he died of an accidental drug overdose. We'll just get to that in 2005. And I know that he gave me permission to share this with people so that it would help them too. Mm-hmm. He had some addiction problems, and I started, rolling down this road of trying to manage everybody. And the more I tried to manage, the more out of control the situation got. We went to church on Sunday, and then both of us were in radio, getting up early in the morning and taking care of the kids. And I was doing this thing again where I thought I had the answers and I was in control. And then I went to church on Sunday.
Wow. You're talking to somebody right there with all of that, about being in control. Thinking.
Yeah. And I didn't understand why it wasn't working. And the sicker that John got, and he had several different treatments that he went into. And I wish I had known about our brothers and sisters at Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge, because I think that's exactly what he needed. But 30 days in a treatment is just, kind of putting on a Band-Aid, and then you rip it off after 30 days when you go out. So ultimately, I think I might be getting ahead of you guys, but that's kind of flows into my faith story,
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm curious too, if you've ever, as you look back on the time that you were dealing with the man that you loved, who had this painful addiction and brought pain to everybody, as you look back now, do you see some of that as preparation for how you handled other pains that came your way, other opportunities that God brought you? Because it's almost like you were in training.
Yeah, you hit it absolutely, Todd. When John passed away in was August 14th, 2005, it was 16 years ago now. And I still share his story because I found him that day. And he was so peaceful. And I thought, on TV, they scream, they holler, everything. But he was at such peace. And it was right then that the Holy Spirit just grabbed me and lifted me up. And it's not very glamorous. I always say by my armpits, and said, here I am again.
I have chills.
I'm going to start crying.
That's powerful. That is very, very powerful. The heart of God, full of love.
Because right there. And I just felt the presence of God ever since that moment until, right now. I'm very attuned to it and open to him. And he is right there in my heart, right beside me in the car every morning at 4:30 driving to work. And I mentioned, John was so peaceful, and it was like God just said, come home. You've tried it. And that's where I learned too. And I share with so many people that, you can have a physical illness and cancer and addiction, and you can get healed here on earth, but many people get healed in heaven.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I think about how God is there in the thin places, in those places where there's crossover. There's the thin places. But just hearing you right now, it makes me have goosebumps and get teary eyed because those thin places can be at all times when we are being still and listening to that still, small, quiet voice that was saying, "Pam, I've got you," and come back to me. So I love that. So as you were walking through that journey, you are already in broadcasting. You're already, you've been in broadcasting for how long at that point?
Well, for probably 15, 16 years working with John at a radio station. We absolutely loved it. It was when he was in his better days.
Yes.
It was KLBB, and we played, the Rat Pack and Ella Fitzgerald and Harry Connick Jr. And we're taking listeners on trips, sold out trips 3 times a year. And I thought to myself, we're going to do this until we retire. But where is it in the Bible that says we can make our plans?
But God has different plans.
He orders our steps.
He does order our steps.
And after John passed away, all of a sudden I was taken care of. It was really amazing. I had enough of a nest egg through my job. Then the radio station went off the air. I had pay for 4 months and insurance. My mom moved in with me. She told my dad, I'm just gonna move in. And she held me too, as we went through those first years, but our first days and months. And then I had to find a job. And guess where I found a job?
At our
KTIS. Christian radio, listener supported 98.5 KTIS, 4 months after John passed away. And how John took care of me was my first job was on Faith Radio, because I wasn't ready to do what I do now. And I was still very fresh as a widow and grieving. And so many people at John's homegoing service were just like, God's going to use this, Pam. God's going to use this. And you're just like, I want my husband back. Well, but, famous words for sure. So 4 months. Go ahead.
I was going to say, some people listening may remember the voice of your husband, John, because he was the traffic guy on KTIS for quite a few years. And there's something about, telling people that traffic is not a glamorous job, but there's something about John.
Well, Pam does the traffic now,
but
too.
What I'm saying is that I think she and John kind of collaborate on this because this personality came out and he made it interesting. But
I tell you what, after his homegoing, John Lundell, after his homegoing service, we had so many emails. It's this thick of people just saying he was like a friend. He was like a neighbor. I just felt like he was a friend. And so, amazing. So then I started working here in 2005, it was December, and then on KTIS after that. But was also amazing is he was inducted into the Minnesota Broadcasting Hall of Fame in 2009, posthumously. Is that how you say it? Posthumously,
yes.
After he went to heaven. So I got to go accept his award, and I thought, what an honor. And then to find out, so many years later that I also, was inducted, it was pretty cool. Yeah.
That is so beautiful. God is in all the details, Pam, and especially being placed there at KTIS. He knew he knew your heart, and he knew that this was exactly where you are to be, because not only are you incredible at broadcasting, but you have such a compassionate, loving heart. And so those that you're ministering to over the air, he just knew. He knew all this before. And so as you went through this pain with John, I love how God really opened up the door of opportunity for you to take your grief and use it as a tool to help others through theirs. And so let's talk a little bit about that open door and how that started.
Well, and again, like I said, standing next to John's casket, God's going to use this. And at that point, you don't want to hear that.
Right.
And I just have to tell you a quick aside too. When we were at Lakewood Cemetery afterwards, and everyone had left, I was standing there as they were lowering the casket. This just sounds so, kind of creepy, but it's real. It's really what happened. And I was standing with someone from the Alban Funeral Home, and that's a ministry that they have there. They just treated me like a daughter. I mean, it was so amazing. And I said, it just seems so silly, to spend so much money on a piece of furniture and bury it in the earth. And Mr.
Seriously,
Alban,
you were thinking that?
Yeah.
I love that about you, Pam. You're very real. And
this German fella,
all right,
that's frugal. Really,
let's keep going. Where did your head? Where did your head go next?
So no, let me tell you. So he said I mentioned it. I said it just seems so weird because John's not there, and he said, yeah. He said the shell's in there, but the nut's in heaven.
Okay, that's hilarious.
And
that's funny.
And I tell that when I speak to groups too, and then they're like, "Do we laugh? Do we laugh?" And I'm like, "Yes, you laugh." Because John's in heaven and he's
keeps
safe.
It real.
But after, in answer to your question, so then I started working here, and what happened was I just noticed through email, social media, even phone calls, widows started calling me and saying, "If you can do this, I can do this." It's like, okay, I see, I get it now. And it became kind of the club no one wanted to be a member of, but I met so many widows from the 35W bridge collapse to people whose husband died of illnesses and accidents. And it's like a sacred club. And I know the details, because they can't talk about this with anybody else. Then I was contacted by a wonderful man who was launching a nonprofit for widows and asked me to get some of these ladies together. We did. And it happened to be, of all things, Valentine's Day. So we got there at this hotel and they had candy and flowers for us. And we were all crying and blubbering and, because no one had given us, flowers and candy on Valentine's Day for a while. But that was the start of Widow Might, which is the nonprofit that I still am a part of. And I just have a heart for widows, and I'm fine. I got remarried, 7 years ago, but I just remember that,
Yeah. So you say you're fine, and I know you are because we know you personally. But I think
fine. Leave me alone.
Fine. Stop talking about it. No, but here's the question though. So as you are ministering and loving on these other widows that are grieving, does it ever keep your own grief alive at some level, or does it?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the part, and I just want to make it clear, because in Widow Might there are 4 cornerstones to live, and that to live means to live moment by moment. Where's your next breath come from? Because I mean, I kept looking for John out the window, and thinking he would come home. To heal, just getting through, and then to heal, to grow, and then to thrive. I'm thriving.
Yes,
but again, I go back to my heart is for widows, but there are some things that I go through, and I tell people too, no matter, what your grief is, if it's slowing you down and it's stopping you from living, then you need to find help.
Yes.
What I love about Widow's Might and those 4 sort of overriding principles you just mentioned is that that's applicable to just about any kind of loss.
Amen.
Right? Because people are grieving through other sorts of losses. And do you find that's when you encounter somebody who's just lost a job, or they've lost a relationship with someone that they thought they were going to get married to, or whatever, are you able to sort of tap into that in that respect and walk them through?
Without naming names, I went through something recently in my life where it was a fraud situation with, and I tell you what, freeze all of your accounts and make sure you know what's going on with your credit score, because I was oblivious. I was oblivious until it was a pretty shaky kind of thing that came on, and it was someone that I knew, and just to have to go through that. It felt the same. It felt like, losing trust, losing, whatever, and then trying to get through each day. And then I tell you what, it was a great lesson too, because I wanted things to be fixed right now, right now. It took months. But, you learn to live, you learn to heal, you learn to grow. And then finally you're on the other side. And you see that even through the junk, God has a plan.
So even through the grief, wouldn't you say that there's also a forgiveness piece while you're grieving? Like,
Oh, Wendy,
forgiving.
yes.
Yeah.
It's so parallel. Wait, yes, that's so
Yes.
good. Thank you for that. I mentioned that I had to go to, I found a Christian therapist 6 months after John died, after I got through the shock and the fog, because I always thought he would get better here on
Right.
earth. So I found this wonderful therapist who said two powerful things to me. And one of them is, and this pertains to any other situation that's very difficult, but for what happened with my late husband, was you have to forgive John.
Mm-hmm.
And I never thought that. I was kind of mad at myself that I was angry because he died,
Right.
You have to forgive John. And the other thing was so great is you can love him, but you can hate the addict.
Mm-hmm.
And that just changed my whole perspective. Is like the sun came out and the clouds parted.
It's like loving the sinner, but not the sin, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's cool about it, that's the kind of breakthrough that led to freedom and
Yes.
allowed you to not just handle that, but to thrive from it, which is the fourth thing that you mentioned that Widows Might teaches.
And help others do the same.
Yeah, and help others do the same. Exactly. Yeah. So a lot of times people associate grief and loss with something very negative. And we all understand why that is, because nobody wants pain or enjoys pain. So from that standpoint, we get it. But it seems like the processes you've been through and what you're teaching brings out the positive parts of what can happen through loss and through grief and through pain. And this way that God can open up opportunities like he did for you now to comfort so many others. But how does that person right now, who's maybe just a short distance from recent loss and grief, how do they start to focus in on the positive things that can come, the opportunities that God might open up? Any advice or suggestions that you can give?
So many things are running through my mind. I mean, first of all, we don't grieve like others grieve. That is the one part that you really have to grab onto your faith. And I pray that if someone is going through something like that right now, it's not all roses and unicorns, as they say. It's very tough and it's very real. But my goodness, I mean, the faith that we have in Jesus and that we have a home. This is our temporary home, as Billy Graham said. We're just passing through. It's such almost a joyful thing. But I would just say, reach out. If you know someone who's going through a tough loss, call them up and say, I'm going to take you out for coffee. I'm going to take you out for dinner tomorrow night. Do something, make a plan and say when. Don't ask them. I say, what can I do for you? Can I do that? You got to give them a date and a time because they're a little frazzled, and stuff like that.
That is actually a really good word, Pam, because I think so often people say, hey, let me know if I can do something for you. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I think that is a good, wise statement right there. Give them a date and a time and let them know how you're going to help them.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, someone, and I didn't realize it till about 6 months later, I love this one. A friend of mine wrote a note, sent a card on the 14th of every month for the first year after John died. And that was on the anniversary of his homegoing, I shall say, and not his death, And I realized that Cheryl had been sending me these for a year. And just something about John, or just as something to cheer up my day. Maybe there was a gift card in there for $5 for a cup of coffee or something like that. But it was really fun to get some, I call it mailbox love.
I love that.
I love
great
that
idea.
Too. Like love bombs, love mailbox love. Like I love that.
So you can, as you're going through your own grieving or on the other side of it, start to take some very positive initiative and reaching out to others. And you've given some great ideas.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that doesn't even accelerate our own healing and give God greater opportunities to use us for the good of others.
Oh, it sure does. Widow Might, and again, it's widowmight.org. is the name of this nonprofit that I am a board member emeritus or something, I guess is my official title, ambassador for Widow Might. Coming up in mid-November, we always have something called Novembering, and it's where we all get together. We have a speaker, we light a candle, we remember our husbands, no matter how long it's been. We laugh, we cry, and my mind just went blank, you guys.
It's okay.
Anyway, it's a wonderful, oh, I know. Though it's a Widow Connect group that have formed all over the metro. And because of the pandemic, people have been joining it from across the nation and around the world. And that's one thing that women do that's great is we talk and we laugh and we cry together and lift each other up. So that's a very important part of it too, of that recovery.
I think that's beautiful. It really is. And as we are in this month of November, it's just such a reminder that those little love notes and whether or not someone has dealt with a loss or not in their life, those love notes are something that can bring someone some new joy and some newfound gratitude. And I think that's just a great message for right now. So I'm curious about, your big fat blended family. So because, families are air quotes, interesting, the dynamics it can be. Yeah. So how has this been for you? How have the relationships been? Have there been any, interesting dynamics, or has it been pretty seamless?
Yes. In the intro, you said where she enjoys her big BF, big fat blended family. I would use the term enjoy loosely. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's been really interesting. I did not give birth to any children, but I always, good subject matter, because I have 3 grandchildren. I have 4 bonus kids. Now that I remarried Tim, it's just a revolving door, in and out, and problems arise, and we have a lot of fun. Another problem arises, and you just do life. But I actually had a friend who said to me, "Well, you don't have any kids, so you don't know what it's like."
Oh wow!
And I love her, and I don't think she knew what she said, because I have managed families and kids and heartaches and peak of the mountaintops and in the valleys and everything, just like any other family.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of trod the road a little even more carefully, I think. But
so maybe in that description, we'll rewrite it. Instead of enjoy, we'll put endure.
Yes.
Because I don't think some people who have never experienced a blended family kind of think like it's really a lot harder to have your nucleus family than it is to have a blended family. Those of us who've experienced blended families know that is just not true. Both are incredibly challenging, but there's even more challenges that come when you're doing your very best to let God love through you someone else's children and to really begin to see them as your own children. But it takes a lot of love and a lot of patience.
Of which you have, Pam.
I tell you, you know me well.
No, you actually do. You're so gracious and you're so compassionate and loving, and you're just always there. You're there for those that are in need, and it's beautiful.
Oh, you are so sweet. I learned from you guys, let me tell you.
Oh, please.
But back on the blended family thing too, and I think it's really important. Where did I hear once? I think it was an advertisement for a divorce lawyer who said, once you have children, your life is their childhood. It's not about you anymore. And I thought that was so important, because so many families in that situation are like, well, not my kid, not this, whatever. But then also the other thing I wanted to highlight too was if the exes are living, try to tolerate them. Just and I can speak from experience that there was no communication for quite some time from the other side, and now I've gotten to know an ex-wife who's wonderful. And it took a couple years, but it's like for the kids and for the family, I don't care if they're 40 or if they're 4, we're going to spend Thanksgiving together. And it's
really cool.
Super nice. They don't have to go to 5 different places. I'm not saying it works for everyone. Everyone's situation is unique, but I'm glad it worked out that way.
I'm thinking about as I'm hearing about blended family and some of the challenges and about losing loved ones and going through grief, all of it has the same common denominator of pain. And it takes something special to have a perspective and even an expectation that there are positive things that can come from that. And this is what we see you have been very intentional about, Pam, even in the recent financial challenge, to work hard to maintain a good perspective and to see some positive opportunities that could arise from it,
and to seek counsel.
And to seek counsel. But it also reminds me of what you said earlier, hearing God say, I'm here, like right now for you. So in the midst of whatever you go through, he's there. But I wanted to ask you, is there any other, I know you go to the Lord often with all of this. Are there any other resources as sort of your go-to that you find yourself, heading towards when you hit a challenge?
I have a lot of friends, what I even would say are accountability partners that I can say anything to them. I think one of them would be Wendy. With wonderful, godly advice and things like that. So surround yourself with people like that every day, because I get up at 4:30, my alarm goes off still, and I love to go to work. My car is my prayer closet on the way through the Lowry Tunnel every day. And I find myself with the radio on. It's like, turn the radio off, even if it's KTIS, and let's have a conversation. And I talk out loud. I pray out loud. And even with my big fat blended family, there's too much to pray about. I'm like, you've got this. But constantly recentering all of us through whatever we go through. There's that tug of war. Satan doesn't care about people who don't know Jesus because he's got them already. He wants you. And you just have to go back to God, go back to Jesus. Every day you've got to get in the Word, a little bit, even if it's, I subscribe to Dayspring daily devotions and love Jesus calling, but just do it.
Radio personality, pastor, and a little bit of a preacher.
Yes, she is. Yes. No, I love that, Pam, because you do every day, and sometimes every hour, sometimes every minute of every hour, you need to go back. You need to go back, because depending on where someone is in life and the struggles they're dealing with, they just need to hear God's truth and know that he's there, that he's got you. So I just love everything that you stand for, Pam, and you are an overcomer, and you are an encourager, and you inspire so many people. You inspire us big time. And I just love you. Yeah.
I was going to just leave you with this one thing too. I think I saw it on a chalkboard art somewhere. If it's worth worrying about, it's worth praying about.
Oh, that's good. Yes.
So good.
It reminds me of what my grandma used to say all the time. She said, I said, Grandma, stop worrying. She said, I never worry. Then she'd spend the night on her knees in prayer. That's what she did her worry.
Or like your mom says, I don't worry. I'm just concerned.
I'm concerned. That's right. Pam, I've got two last things for you. One is, I want you to think for just a moment about a word or a phrase that might sum up the entirety of who you are.
A word or a phrase.
Mm-hmm.
Overflowing, I would say.
Ooh,
that's a good one.
And I thought, okay, do it quick, Pam. Let's come up with something. But I'm always like, I cry when people win on The Price is Right. I mean, at the Folgers commercials, I'm just one of these people who's God's given a lot of empathy and a lot of emotion and stuff too. So it always feels like I'm doing that. And even at KTIS, when we hear these stories from listeners and what God's done in their lives, I always say I have to take a heartbreak. Not like my heart's broken, but my heart is so full, so beautiful. Overflowing.
I love that, Pam. And you are overflowing, and sometimes you need that to be filled back up because you are giving so much of your emotions and energy out. But as we go through this last question, it's a fun one. What would be something that maybe someone doesn't know about Pam Lundell? Maybe it's a hidden talent or a gift or just something. Maybe you like to play the harmonica. I don't know. What is it that Pam does that maybe we want to know? Inquiring minds want to know.
I can write backwards.
What?
Oh, like what do you mean?
Yes.
Like cursive?
Okay.
What do you mean?
Really?
Like you can work at Macaroni Grill on the table and write upside down and backwards?
Okay, so right now I think this should work here. I'm writing my name.
I'm wondering why.
Okay.
Why?
Backwards.
Yeah, why?
Now, does this look like my name? Does it say Pam Lundell?
Yeah, actually, I see that.
Okay, that's
now I just wrote it backwards so you can see it forwards.
Oh, we actually see it backwards.
We see it backwards.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, so if you put it in a mirror.
Yeah, then
Then you
Then
can
you
see
can
Okay,
it
now
see it,
slowly.
yes.
why did you and how?
And how
I mean,
did you
what was
know
the-
that you had that
What was the
talent?
deal on that?
Well, when I was in grade school, I figured I could do it. Well, I'm left-handed when I eat and when I eat and write, and then right-handed everything else.
Oh,
And I was
ambidextrous.
not really, because isn't
Oh.
ambidextrous mean you can do it both?
Yeah.
Well,
But
I
I
thought
thought-
so, but
And all sports are right-handed.
I
I
gotcha.
couldn't use a left-handed baseball glove.
Gotcha.
So I would write letters to friends in grade school backwards, and then we'd hold it up in front of the mirror. And then I was in an abnormal psychology class, feature that, when they talked about this. It's called mirror writing, and it's a form of dyslexia, but I would say I'm a little bit dyslexic, but I always got A's and I got scholarships and stuff like that. But
I'm
came out of that.
trying to do my name backwards.
it's
I
not
don't
working
even know-
out so well.
No, you start with the last letter to the right and you go to the left, the other direction.
You go
Yeah.
this
No
Pam
way. No way.
Wow.
Lundell.
Okay.
Okay,
all right.
that's actually cool.
I would like
No.
just about 5 minutes inside your brain just to look around a little bit.
Oh my goodness. She's going to start teaching classes on how to write backwards. Oh, that is
That's right.
fascinating. Okay,
Yeah.
good. That's something good to know, and maybe something good to try at home.
Yeah.
Ta-da. Awesome. Pam, thank you so much for sharing your heart with us
Yes.
and always being such an encouraging voice and being there for so many that need to hear from you and that you help them guide through their grief. And so we love you. Thank you. And may God bless everything that he's doing in and through you.
Yeah.
I know that there is a podcast that is in the works.
It is.
Do you want to share a little bit about that before we go?
Well, I would just say, coming soon. And yes, it's called A Widow's Heart. And I've got a lot of great guests and stuff that are coming on. And we hope to continue to help people to live, heal, grow, and thrive.
Beautiful.
I love it.
You can stay in touch with Pam. Follow her on social media. She's everywhere. And if you have a chance, you can stream KTIS
That's right.
and hear on KTIS FM as well.
That's right. So thank you so much, Pam. And thank you all for tuning in to Your Biggest Breakthrough. We will catch you next time, same place.
Thanks, Pam.